Hello, and welcome to Wellness Wednesday. A couple little tech issues, but hey, smile, breathe, keep moving forward, right? That's what we do when we're up against those challenges. All right, so welcome to Wellness Wednesday. We're coming to you from Zoom. I will pop over to see comments. So if you have any questions for Tanya, please put them in the comments and I will whip over and have a look at that. So I'm going to tell you about Tanya Stricek, and we've known each other for a little while now. We have the best conversations, and I'm so excited to have her join us today. All right. So Tanya is ex-dental hygienist turned holistic nutritionist and mindful eater. Okay, she believes in living midlife unconfined by dropping food rules and the rules of aging so that your path through menopause and beyond is paved with choice plus vitality. She helps you walk this path with mindful eating so you can see that health is not found at the bottom of your salad bowl, not on your scale. Okay, today we're talking about mindfulness. Can this really help us love the skin you're in? So welcome, Tanya. Thank you so much for joining me.
I'm so excited to be here. I love to have these conversations, and I think any of you who are here with Sherry are always in for a treat because her mission to help us all love the skin that we're in is so needed at this age and stage, and up until the very last breath.
Thanks so much, Tanya. Hi, Sandra. Thanks for joining us. If you have any questions, anybody, remember to drop them into the comments. All right, so let's get this party started. We were talking before, and oh my goodness, we just have so much. Tanya, you just carry such a wealth of information. So we'll try to keep this on a path and all right, so talk to us a little bit about mindfulness. Let's start there.
I think many women might be like me. We're very busy at this age and stage, right? Our minds are busy, our bodies are busy, our life is busy. Mindfulness to me was something that was just unreachable and unattainable. And it really can be defined as being here right now, being focused on your present moment. People have a lot of misconceptions about mindfulness, that it's a religion, that it's a Buddhist culture, that it's a cult, that you need to breathe, that you need to buy a meditation cushion. And it can have components of all of those things, but truly mindfulness helps you disengage from the future worry, which we have a lot of at this age, but also past regret. I know I feel that. If anybody else is dealing with that right now, let us know. Be here right now. It doesn't always have to be glorious and glamorous right now, but it can be.
Yeah. And so that's, I love how you simplify that. I talk a lot about mindfulness as well. Hi, Teresa. And really being that simple, but yet it isn't, right? It's simple in theory, but takes practice, takes showing up consistently. And so when we look at being mindful, how does this relate to our food? To how do we bring that together into this moment as we look at food and our choices and nutrition?
I'd ask whoever's on and whoever watches the replay to actually think about times that they're faced with eating struggles or eating choices, right? You go to a party, you vowed you weren't going to eat the thing. You vowed you weren't having all the wine. And you even had the meal, like everybody says, have the meal before you go so you don't eat the things, right? You stock up on your veggies, but you go and there's delicious food and conversation and so much going on and you're enjoying yourself. And like these moments are rare, right? We want to feel this. And so how can we bring this whole be here right now thought to food, nutrition, and food choices? We can use something called the wise mind model. And When you think about food, how many of you get emotional either about food or your body in ways that could be very different, right? You could be like, that's it. I'm never going on another diet. I don't care about not eating gluten. I don't care what the doctor says, my blood sugar, whatever, pass me the chart, right? We can have, or we can even feel all this regret and emotion because my body's not what it was. And it's so ugly and I'm so upset. We have these things we say to ourselves, but we can also be really factual, right? We're in an emotional mind, but we can be factual. Well, I better watch my cholesterol. I'm worried about heart disease, my blood sugar. I need to worry about that. What about my bones? I want to be mobile till I'm 80. All very, very good goals. So when I say I want you to feel unconfined by food rules, I mean outside food rules and by the emotions and the thoughts in our own head. The middle road, the wise mind, can help you make these decisions. So when you're at that party and the barbecue this summer, right? And all the delicious food is out, take a moment and actually feel what you're feeling. I can't eat that. It's going to make me gain 10 pounds. I can't eat that. I won't live till I'm 80 because there's sugar in it. What's the wise mind? I haven't had a piece of cake in a month. I'd really like to try a little bit of that. Maybe I'll start with just a tiny bit and see how I feel. And that's what I mean by bringing this to nutrition. You know, we need our salad bowls, but the answers aren't always in the bottom with the kale and the quinoa. They're in here.
Mm. Yeah.
Was that helpful?
Yes. And finding that recipe that works for us. I know I talk about that so much, you know. I had a conversation with someone a while ago and we were ordering something and I said, okay, hold the quinoa. And she said to me, Sherry, you don't like quinoa? You know, it's a superfood, right? I said, I like quinoa, but quinoa doesn't like, my body doesn't like quinoa. Not at all. And I've tried it so many times in so many different ways because it was a superfood, but it is not a superfood for me personally.
Yes.
From a digestive perspective. So I gave up trying to eat quinoa. There's just no point.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so just because it's labeled a superfood or whatever, doesn't necessarily mean it's good for us personally.
And when we think about foods like quinoa as having all of these facts, right? Facts about quinoa. And I could already feel that feeling of like, what? She doesn't want to eat the quinoa because we get judgy, right? Right.
Yeah, of course.
All kinds of ways. But when you use your wise mind, you can actually start to pick apart things that nourish you. We forget that if you come from a cultural background, everybody has a cultural background, but your culture, the cultural foods that you deny yourself because they're bad for you, the fact that you might be on the toilet if you eat something, that's logical, right? But the denying a food because you think it's going to take you down the road of ill health or another 10 pounds and you're missing social connection, that's nourishment.
I love that. That connection between food, pleasure, connection, nourishment, right? And denying yourself those things, you know, for a lot of restrictive reasons, you know, whether logical or emotional, but then leaving such a wonderful thing and feeling, you know, I went away on a cousin's weekend and totally enjoyed all food rules, went out the window, you know, all this kind of stuff. Did we eat like crazy? No, not necessarily, right? But when I left, my cup was full. Right? My cup was full instead of fighting with myself the whole time I was there, right? And I think sometimes we rob ourselves of that experience. And this is where mindfulness comes in.
Absolutely. And, you know, you're reminding me of something about the non-diet approach that I almost want to say, we hear about I'm a non-diet person. I don't want to sell meal plans and diets. Have I done it? Yes. And I think we sometimes need to talk about that elephant in the room because women, we don't want to be heavy. And the non-diet world wants you not to talk about it, accept the skin you're in. And we have to accept all people and cultural diversity, but it's there. right? We bump up against it all day long. And when you describe the weekend that you just had, where you left feeling great, you didn't come home admonishing yourself in the car on the drive, like, I'm back on Monday. I was so awful this week. I can't believe myself, that's different when you are in this cycle, the eat, guilt, repent cycle. Then, okay, I had a great weekend. I don't feel bad, but I think I'm going to just sort of relax into maybe some more salads this week and some lean protein. I don't think I'm going to have any alcohol. It's the perspective.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the things that we should be thinking about from a nutrition perspective at this time in our lives?
And this is a great question because we have increased risk past menopause through our lifespan once you pass that phase of cardiovascular disease, osteoporosis, and even type 2 diabetes. And so I see a lot of women who have health fear, health anxiety about these things, because naturally too, the ebb and flow of hormones in that brain change the emotional picture physically, right? We have a physical change, but we get worried about those chronic illnesses. For sure. It is a worry. But when you step back and really focus on health behavior and even your emotional reaction with food, you might do yourself more service in the long term than actually just pulling out the diet book, following the glucose goddess, and cutting out, going on a sugar detox. Especially if you're the person who goes on the 3-week detox, I feel great, but I couldn't resist that brownie, and I'm all back in that whole thing again. That's not healthy either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That repetitive cycle actually does more damage than just, working on eating healthier on a daily basis.
And it's emotionally exhausting, and it boots your self-esteem. Because we've spent a lot of years, I think a lot of us, in that cycle of, oops, I did it again, oh dear, and even worse, the things we feel about ourselves. And the body does change. We gain weight, not all of us, but we do. There's a physiologic reason for belly fat. It has a hormonal role, and people can argue that it's a good or bad thing, but it's a thing, right?
It's what is, right? And when we
It's
look
what
at mindfulness, this is something that we have to accept in this moment. So let's talk. Okay, so you and I were chatting a little bit before about, supplements, not supplements. We were talking about calcium in particular, and trying to get that calcium in through food, and maybe you're non-dairy as I am. And, we were having a really good chat about that. So let's dive in there using calcium, osteoporosis, osteopenic as just, an example.
It's a great example because it's very prevalent, right? Men and women. It's not just women. And if we're going to pull in the calcium, we have to think about this in a broader picture, right? Yes, calcium, but we have vitamin D. We have vitamin K2 that you need with your vitamin D. And say you're a plant-based eater and you don't want to have dairy, right? There's a lot of controversy over dairy. Well, how do we get that calcium? How do we liberate it? We have to liberate it through the digestion. So if you are very stressed, if you are bloated and farting and going to the toilet a lot or not going, your calcium may not be your priority. But if you're actually looking at whole foods, the one thing too, we forget about diversity. We worry so much about, oh my God, it's too much greens. I'm going to have kidney stones, or I can't eat tofu. It's bad for my thyroid, because there are some minerals there and calcium, fortified foods. How do you pull back and start to look at your total of what you're eating? You can have a bird's eye view of what you're eating with that wise mind and say, okay, here's where I need to add in. What can I add in to get that amount? What am I actually doing that might take away? Am I drinking? Am I having coffee with my food, which is buying my minerals, right? Am I going to the bathroom too much? I hope this answers your question, because it's such a multi-layered question of how to get that calcium. And calcium is not always the huge factor. in the bone, as you know, Sherry, movement,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Health behavior. It's what we do on the daily, but like long-term in a sustainable way.
Love that. Health behavior, right? What we do daily in a long-term sustainable way, right? Those small steps.
Yes. And even perspective. I come from a healthcare background. I'm a ex-registered health professional in Ontario. What do we learn? The social determinants of health. You don't teach that in nutrition school. Do you have control always over your finances, your education, your race, your genetics? What can you control? Your thoughts, your perceptions of yourself, to some degree your food, but there's an access issue for a lot of people. Supplements are costly. Mark Hyman's morning routine is like $120. If you know Mark Hyman, he's like the functional medicine doctor on YouTube, and how he gets longevity in his smoothies. I don't have $120 for a smoothie in the morning. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. So we need diversity of food.
Yes.
Okay. And so a lot of people get into eating a lot of the same things.
And sometimes that's for the reason of simplicity, right? So if you're a busy person, you might want to meal prep your chicken, your rice, your veg every day, and you're happy with that. And that's great. If you feel great, you don't have any orthorexic tendencies, like obsession about the healthy food. You allow yourself certain foods. You're tuning into like, you know what, I've been eating chicken for 6 weeks now. I'm a little constipated. Maybe I need to rotate my protein. That's okay. But if we're thinking about our gut microbiome, which we all hear about, but it's another thing that's kind of out there. The diversity of foods, your colorful foods, your different types of fibers, cooked, raw, resistant starch, in your rice, your sweet potato. These are beneficial foods. They help develop your bacterial diversity and minerals. And when you're talking about your calcium, Sherry, if we think more about how we eat rather than always what we eat, if you're eating in a rush state and you're chewing fast and you have the most beautiful organic calcium laden food in front of you available to you, if you're gulping it, you haven't pulverized it and given your digestion a chance to even get that out of there. You've got large molecules going through that digestive tract and you just make expensive waste.
I love that, right? I love that. Again, this circles us back to the mindfulness at the table even, right? The mindfulness while we're eating, while we're chewing.
And while this can sound, again, so like, what is that going to do for me? Let's put a physical perspective on it. Your nervous system has states of fight, flight, freeze, flee, sympathetic, stressed out. And then we have parasympathetic, the times that you feel like, wow, I could sit on this dog for hours and read this book and I'd be thrilled. That parasympathetic is your rest and digest stage. It turns on your stomach acid, your digestive enzymes, your saliva. So if you're here in your emotional mind, stressed out, nothing's turning on. You're not liberating those nutrients.
Absolutely. So again, a bigger picture, right? A bigger picture when it comes to food. How are we ingesting it? What state are we in when we are ingesting it? How are we distracting ourselves while ingesting our foods, right? So I know we talked about the pulse check before. So let's dive into that. We've just got a couple of minutes left, and let's look at the pulse check and really leave everybody with a tool.
Awesome.
Right? A take-home tool.
This is the pulse check, tuning in. It's really just stopping, pausing. This is how I got through my days in clinical dental hygiene when I learned about mindfulness in a way that was simple to me. Take a breath or use a word. Halt is a word that I learned from Al-Anon. Are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? You don't have to pick one, but when you say halt, you're in that moment before you go to your dinner table. Any time in the day, it's a practice so that you start to understand where you're at. So if you know you're angry, you're upset, you're depressed, pull back, because you can see that from a mindful perspective, we're observing how we are. We don't have to attach to how we are. And I know that's difficult when we're going through tough times, but when you can understand, I'm really sad. Okay, let's take a few minutes to acknowledge that, take some breathing, that signals that nervous system, and move on to your next task. It's the practice of checking in with yourself and how you are, which is so important in this third chapter, because you're.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, just doing that pulse check, that dropping into the moment, and, breath is the gateway.
Yes.
Breath is the gateway to the body. It's the gateway to the present moment. And just taking that moment to breathe, right? Looking at our food before we inhale it, right? Slowing down, letting go of distractions. And so, that one small step that you can take, the pulse check, right?
And forgive yourself.
Yeah.
Because you're not perfect. We're not perfect. People eat mindlessly. You might be eating on your sales call in the car, but if you can still take that moment.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I love this. You're going to come back and join us again another time, because we've just got so much more to, I have all these ideas down here and all these notes. And I am super excited to say that Tanya and I are going to be doing a retreat together in the fall. So keep your eyes peeled for that one, because we will have that capped and only so many people can. So just so that everybody has a great experience, it will be virtual. And we are deep into the planning stages of that. So I am so excited about that. And that will be coming your way around the end of September. So Tanya, where do we find you?
Currently, you could find me on Instagram or YouTube. Instagram is kind of fun for me. I love to talk to people through those stories. I have a young daughter, so I'm a bit of a millennial. But YouTube, I think, and Sherry is on YouTube. We need more women 55 and over on YouTube for conversation and connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, we do. Yeah, for sure. All right. So we can find you under the Mindful Nutritionist?
Yep, a Mindful Nutritionist.
Nice. Thanks again. Any questions before we sign off? I don't see any as of yet. All right.
It's a hard one. People have a hard time. I had a hard time wrapping my head around this whole slow down thing.
Hard. So much value to it, though, when it comes to balancing that nervous system, right? So thank you so much, my dear.
Thank you. Talk soon.
And thanks everybody for joining us for our very first Wellness Wednesday. All right. Take care of you. All right.